when psychological warfare does work. Combat sports' mental component is frequently overlooked. Every fight necessitates that you train and spar until you physically can't because skills and qualities are crucial. No matter how many times you practice the identical punch before the fight, if your mind isn't in the correct place, it will hold your body back. Why does it not work during the actual fight if it works during sparring? The man who is seated across from you might be involved. The other man insulted you. He made a very private online posting amid the fight. He punched you out, or perhaps he's merely the source of all your misery. No matter how talented and fortunate you are, if any of these thoughts cross your head during a battle, you will be outclassed and doomed to failure. There is no end to the trash talk and MMA. However, there are situations of complete mental destruction, and in these cases, the combat is already over before the referee signals for you to start fighting. Everyone enjoys this stuff. Yes, the greatest should compete against the best in MMA. The two strongest combatants, aren't they always even more hateful against one another? Everyone enjoys a bloody battle. Sometimes you feel horrible for the boxer because he's not just getting beaten up, he also doesn't want to stay there for another round. Punches and kicks break bones. Words may crush your spirit in a world as intense and chaotic as MMA, where there is no such much at stake. We'll discuss 3 occasions where psychological warfare, not trash talking, succeeded. Number 1, Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo. Conor McGregor is recognised as one of the most skilled practitioners of psychological combat, if not the most skilled. He is ranked higher than Muhammad Ali in the category by Dana White. And while his most recent mental battles failed, when Conor McGregor first entered the featherweight category, the threat of both physical and psychological assault made him the dread of the division. When McGregor spoke, his opponents were visibly shaken and preoccupied, with wondering if the loudmouth in front of them was a demigod he claimed to be. Every step of the way, McGregor was there to tell his unfortunate dance partner that they were in for complete hell. Whether on Instagram, Twitter or YouTube, he approached Dustin Poirier and knocked him out as no one else had ever done. For most of the build-up, he torments Dennis Siver and demolishes him, but Jose Aldo, the pound-for-pound champion at the time and someone who had gone over 10 years without losing, was his biggest victim. McGregor didn't just make fun of him and laugh, he planned a terror campaign against one of the UFC fighters with the highest level of decorum. Additionally, he was unrelenting in his efforts to impair him before the fight mentally. Because McGregor used that global promotional tour as a means of ramming Jose Aldo in the head, the UFC served as his accomplice in the crime. He arrived and erected a skyscraper. Aldo, who is often calm and assured, was immediately uncomfortable. He's never been treated with such disdain and contempt. In his attempts to retaliate, he just provided McGregor with additional options. After Aldo withdrew from UFC 189, the pain continued for a few months. By the time the two fighters faced up at UFC 194, Jose Aldo wanted the nightmare to be over. Backstage that fateful night, Aldo was having trouble maintaining his cool. His coaches repeatedly told him he was the champion and needed to retain his composure. He had no energy or hope as he made his way to the cage. And when he was close to the octagon, the bane of his existence was already there, stalking him like a wounded man. Once Aldo entered the ring, he was up against McGregor, the UFC, the people of Ireland, and the demons inside his psyche. When the bell sounded, he rushed forward with a punch to end the night as quickly as possible, but he didn't bother judging the timing or distance. In just 13 seconds, McGregor caught him with a counter left and took everything from him. Fans occasionally found it uncomfortable to watch this campaign. Number 2, Donald Cerrone vs Nate Diaz. Cerrone was hailed as the upcoming great lightweight in the early 2010s. He will always be remembered as a devoted fan favourite and a hilarious scrapper. However, Donald was the division's leader then, and most of his contemporaries regarded him with great dread. They battled 4 times in a matter of months after joining the UFC. Dan White placed him up against Nate Diaz because he needed to win one more time, perhaps in the hopes that Cerrone would defeat Diaz and earn greater popularity among casual fans. Donald had recorded a 17-3, but his opponents had a record of 14-7. The strategy for overcoming Nate had long since been made public. He needed to win the decision to control him on the ground and brutalise his lead leg. This was a bad matchup on paper for Nate, and he presumably knew that. What preparations did the younger Diaz make? Every chance he got, he gave Cerrone the finger. Cerrone had been there though to have fun ever since the WEC days. He grinned, hugged his opponents and shook their hands throughout the procedure. At the UFC 141 press conference, Diaz shoved Cerrone away after getting in his face and mugging him. He then knocked off his trademark cowboy hat. Cerrone was uneasy and gradually began to struggle. Donald Cerrone wasn't comfortable at UFC 141, but Nate had him exactly where he wanted him. Diaz set a record by striking Cerrone 200 times in the face during their battle after coming face to face in the middle of the octagon. Diaz leaned heavily on his lead leg through the entire barrage of boxing, and while Cerrone occasionally connected with a leg kick, his main goal was to stay in the pocket and spar with Nate. His head is in the middle of the ring without regular kicks and takedowns. Cerrone took a battering, and most people seem to recall third act of the fight. Diaz began the third round by bringing back Cerrone's bloody nose and the jester from earlier while simply nodding his head. He appeared emotionally and physically worn out. When the horn sounded, Diaz and Cerrone embraced and shook hands, showing that it was all business for an idea. But Cerrone, this was his most personal conflict to date. Number 3, TJ Dillashaw vs Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz is one of the all-time great fighters and quite possibly the GOAT. The Dominator at 135 pounds was the final WEC Bantamweight champion and the first UFC Bantamweight title. At only 25 years old, he did this with an unbeatable fighting style and an elite skill set. For Dominick, the sky was the limit. Unfortunately, he sustained several serious injuries, as did all of us. He also struggled to regain his health and return to his prime years later when he was on the sidelines. Cruz returned to take on TJ in 2016, and all hell had already broken loose at that time in Team Alpha Male. Cruz is a cerebral fighter, so the developing drama was just what he needed. Cruz verbally dismembers you with a happy smile on his face while McGregor yells and threatens to do it violently. The Dominator is one of the most unappreciated trash talkers in the history of UFC. He demonstrates this during the conflict with Dillashaw, who prevailed due to his fighting record and tactics, but most significantly, he pursued Dillashaw personally. Dillashaw occasionally trembled with wrath. Cruz would always silence him when he tried to talk back. Dillashaw swung at the air for the first 3 rounds, but only 30% of his blows connected. By the 5th round, he had largely regained consciousness and had begun focusing on his opponent's legs. Cruz was having trouble with leg kicks, but it was too late when there were 4 rounds left. Cruz defeated Dillashaw for the title battle via split decision, and Dillashaw is probably still sulking about it today. That's all for this video, guys. We'll be back soon with another informative one. Don't forget to like and share this video. Until next time.